Hi Natasha, we're sitting in Christiania in Copenhagen.
Yeah.
Can you just introduce yourself briefly?
Yes. I'm Natasha. What would you like me to say?
Yeah. Collective, anything that you work here? Or...
Okay, I'm Natasha, and I've been coming to, visiting, going to and from Christiania for about 11 years now. Spending a lot of time around here. Yeah.
All right. So can you give us a description of what Christiania is all about? When did it start, and what's the thinking behind it, and what is it?
Yeah, so it started in 1971, and it was an occupation of an old military base at that time, which had only recently become empty. The people that started it had been involved in various different things, but also in the squatting movement in Copenhagen. So some of the people had been involved in sort of the more politicized arm of the squatting movement. Some had been involved in squatting a house just down the road in Christianshavn. And they were very utopian in the way that they did it. They put it out in the paper, they made a media spectacle, took a photo of them breaking down the fences and said, "Come and join us, we're starting a new community, a free community." The way that they did it was pretty amazing, I think, in that they claimed it as a free space for all, as a refuge. They played with this idea around Christiania being a refuge from, I guess, the ravages of capitalism, but also from the sort of homogeneity of the Danish socialist state at the time. So a place of difference. Initially, people squatted it, they were evicted, the police chased people out, and people re-squatted it. They went through quite a process, and they found out that they actually couldn't evict people. They didn't have the capacity to get rid of people here. And then the Danish Parliament discussed it and gave it a year of being an experiment. And this idea of it being an experiment was something that Christiania then played with, took up and ran with, and continually pushed the date of eviction through public action, through defence campaigns, through all sorts of interesting creative acts, until around 1991, where it was legalised in some form, where a legal agreement was reached with the Danish state, and it was a very contested legal agreement. How long do you want me to be? So it was a very contested legal agreement, but it raised a lot of questions about values in society, and raised a lot of questions about the way that the community could and should be organised. And it ended up in this sort of 10-year bumper period, which ended pretty much with the election of a right-wing government for the first time in Denmark in many, many years. And at that point they said they were going to evict Christiania, and a whole new struggle began. So where we are currently is the end product of that new period of struggle, from eviction to Christiania being offered almost 3/4 of the land and living space in Christiania to buy for a symbolic price and own collectively. The rest of Christiania is still under struggle.
So, and how many people are living here?
Officially, I think there's around 650 or so people living here. Unofficially, I'd say there's quite a few more than that. Yeah, it's quite a large community.
But you'd say about 1,000 or so? Or?
I'd say probably about 1,000 people. Yeah.
And many more come here and work, right?
People come here and they work. People come here and they visit, travel through, do artwork, be inspired. Yeah.
You also get a lot of tourists.
A lot of tourists. It's the second most popular tourist spot in Copenhagen, can you believe? Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. A squatted place which becomes a tourist destination.
I know, can you believe it? Yeah.
So what are the different kinds of activities that people do here? A lot of people work within the commune or the community.
Yeah.
People work outside, and I think there's lots of collectives. So maybe just tell us some.
Yeah, I think life is quite different in the community on many different levels. People often work in the infrastructure of Christiania, maintaining the place. people do a lot of part-time work or partial work to not be fully invested in the labour market, to not be selling their labour all the hours of the day, and have more leisure time to be able to participate more in a community. A lot of people come here, a lot of for art, for political expression. So a lot of the people that live here are artists, performers of some description, and I think it allows for that lifestyle a lot more than other places, because there's not the usual sort of social arrangements of needing to mortgage your soul for existing. People come here for lots of different reasons. Some people just come here to jog in the morning, it's a huge place for jogging. A lot of people come here because they're inspired by the ideas behind Christiania and want to see how this sort of community works out in practice. And I think, 40-something years on, it's a pretty good place to explore how things can work out in practice.
Right. So you were also saying, I think, that there's a lot of ethic of sustainability, ecological and other ways. So anything on that?
I think Christiania started with this declaration of intent, which is to avoid material and psychological pollution. And at the time it was quite challenging to the sort of 70s consumerist era, like buy more, be more, consume more. It was a huge rejection of that form of materialism and was treated as a very weird and strange place at that time for that. So it was quite a foundational part of how it started. Through time, I guess, it became much more of a space for difference, for living difference, for accepting that there are people that don't want to and don't fit in to mainstream society. But always through that, there's been this ethic of reuse, repurpose, of low material consumption, of minimising waste. And people do that in loads of different ways. Like, people live off the waste of other people, so through using building material that other people are throwing out to build, through attempting to live in a way that doesn't produce a whole heap of waste. And I think the structures of Christiania have really grown up around that to support it. So, for example, we have this place called the Green Hall, which is a big old riding hall, and they collect building material that has been thrown out from around the city, bring it here, and then people can use that to build on their homes. So it's a structure that really supports more sustainable building practices. There's also the building office, which is an office that gives people advice on how to do the things that they want to do. And it has this green loan, so if you're doing an ecological development of your home, like something that has an environmental basis to it, then you can get a loan from them. So it supports, again, this environmental ethic coming through. There's also, I don't know, there's like people have talked about it in terms of a scavenger mentality, that people don't go out looking for where they can buy things, they look for what they can find. And then do things with what they can find. So you find people looking in the bins and like going through the recycling centres to build themselves a bike rather than saving up to go out and buy a bike. And that's just a way of living that's very much encouraged socially here. So it makes quite a difference when all your peers get all of their clothes from the free shop, not from a boutique or from a first-hand store. It means that you feel much more comfortable doing that, I think. So it's like a culture of support for it, as well as the institutions and the structures that support it.
And also, are some of the basic needs met in collective ways?
In some places, in some ways. So it's possible. It's definitely possible to live here and have pretty much most of your needs met in the community. I think one of the big things that we don't talk about in the north, in the global north a lot, is the social needs that people have, and I think Christiania does that particularly well. So there's lots of common spaces for people to hang out together and to be together without having to need to buy something. So it's not like we have to go to a cafe with somebody and spend money in order to be able to spend time. You can be in both inside and outside collective spaces and be socially supported and know that you're going to meet people in your community when you just go there without a schedule. So on that side, yes. There's also, I think, the sort of infrastructure for being able to live more simply, because there is this collective support. So things like the bathhouse, where people can bathe together. It means that you don't have to have a bathroom in your house. So you don't have to have that sort of building and development and that sort of space. You can have a much smaller dwelling. You can have a much simpler dwelling. We have a collective laundry, recycles its water through. Similarly, I think that supports people living a less materially intensive life themselves in connection with other people.
No need for washing machines.
Yeah, like you don't have to buy your own washing machine, you can share it with all your neighbours. Yeah, and a lot of the areas have that sort of sharing structure as well. So one of the first areas I stayed in, they had a collective washing machine room for the whole area. Yeah. Which makes a huge difference. They have tools which you share. We have a machine hall which looks after the machinery, so we don't have to buy machinery for each area. We have this collective machinery that people can use when they need it.
There's also a number of workers' collectives here.
Yeah, there's workers' cooperatives.
How do they work here?
They're all different. Like Christiania is one big mix of difference and like different experiments. So some workers' cooperatives have it so that everybody who works in the cooperative has an equal say in decision making and equal participation in access to either finances or support as they need it. Others have like different structures that work for that collective. But there is a big effort of trying to have the businesses that operate in Christiania to be workers' cooperatives rather than being profit-making businesses where somebody takes the profit to a private purse.
Is there equal pay for every hour of work for whatever you're doing? Or?
I think that really depends on the institution and it really depends on the circumstance. Like in some cooperatives, people work for free as volunteers. In others, they have a rate of pay, and sometimes they're called a Christiania rate of pay. So it's not a wage as such, but it's enough for people to live and get by. So, yeah.
There's also a local currency.
There is a local currency.
How does that work? What is it called, and how does it work?
It's called the non, and it's you can purchase it from the recycled building place and a bunch of other places around town, and it's functional within the community. Like you can use it within the community, and it exchanges for 50 krona per coin. Yeah, so it's like a standard.
Yeah. What else? Anything else that strikes you, which is kind of really important for us to know?
I think it's a really amazing place because so many people come through and so many people are inspired by their experience of being here and take those ideas to various places around the world. Like I know a lot of people who've lived here for a short amount of time and then gone taking those experiences elsewhere, both the good and the bad. You know, like the things I would do the same and the things I would do differently to other places. So I think it has an enormous impact on a ideological level and on a aspirations for the world sort of level. It's possible. We can do it. We can be this big and this pretty and this crazy. You know, it's possible. And I think it sparks ideas in people, and that's possibly the most important that it does.
Would you say that it's sort of an attempt to live in an anarchic, sort of following the principles of anarchy, or would that be an exaggeration?
So I would say that. But I think a lot of people in the community would say, hell no, we're just living the way we want to. When you look at the structures of the community, you have collective decision making by consensus, and then you have autonomy at the lowest level possible, working down to like the people that need to be involved in making decisions, making those decisions on every aspect of the community, from the infrastructure through to the boutiques. You know, like it's really a huge experiment in self-management, and I think it attempts in many ways to balance collective and individual freedoms in really interesting ways. So I think from that perspective, yes, you could really say it is. I think it's determinedly anti-ideological also, which I think in some ways is a very anarchist approach to social change. It's like dealing with what you've got here, not from the position of ideological position, but from a position of what works and how can we do this with compassion and empathy for each other, and how can we do this in a way that manifests in values that we care about. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I would say that. Don't tell my neighbours. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Natasha. Thank you. It's great for us to be here. Wonderful to see this place. I love the eclecticism of it. So many different kinds of things and ways to live, and it feels very nice. The energy is great.
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely.
I have a last question, sorry. How do you see the future of Tristania? I mean, in so much of crackdown and all of that.
Yeah.
How do you see it?
See, one of the things that actually gives me a lot of hope being here is how resilient the community has been through all of these phases. I mean, enormous amounts of political pressure, enormous amounts of funds, public funds spent on cracking down and stopping this place, and it's survived and it's flourished in many ways, yeah. And like I talk about this in regard to the meetings here, like I think a lot of the meetings are appalling, and yet it thrives. I think some of the social relating, I mean, there's some of the hardest problems you'll find in communities. There's huge issues with addiction here. There's like these issues with different groups that have significant amounts of power or use violence in the way that they interact, and yet the community survives. And it doesn't just survive, people live here and live very, very well. So it gives me a lot of hope. It makes me feel like it doesn't have to be perfect to be very possible. And even without it being perfect, even without it realising all of those dreams and aspirations, it's still inspiring and it still motivates people. I mean, people get quite passionate about being here. They come here, they visit for a couple of days and they go away with stars in their eyes about it. That's beautiful. Yeah. These sorts of projects.
You had an event called Nowtopia a week back. So what was that about? It's an interesting term.
Yeah, well, Nowtopia I think Christiania is a good example of Nowtopia. Like, it's trying to live the way that you want the world to be. Yeah. And it was a gathering of all of those different projects. So it was super inspiring for many different reasons. There was huge group of projects just in Denmark that came together for it. Some of those projects did like a little workshop. Some ran a space for, the 5 days of the Nowtopia Festival. Super beautiful, and I think really nice also to get those projects talking to each other in some way and interacting. So yeah, that was also very nice. And I think the idea of Nowtopia resonates with a lot of people. Like, it's one of those things that people go, yeah, I want to live my dreams now. I want to make that happen. Yeah, and it's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.